In the words of Health Minister OMICRON, Singapore cannot afford another COVID-19 wave like Omicron. Hitting new record highs, prices at the pump break $4 for the first time. 100 days since Russia's invasion, we speak to one photojournalist about what he saw in Ukraine. Good evening, you're watching The Big Story with me, Haryanto Diman. Subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you will not miss a single episode. Is Singapore ready for another COVID-19 wave? Well, Health Minister OMICRON says we cannot afford another situation like Omicron, and the country is taking steps to prepare for the next outbreak. Speaking at MOH's annual work plan seminar, he used South Africa, which has gone through 5 COVID-19 waves, as an example. Mr. Ong says, if we imagine BA.4 or BA.5 will come to Asia or Singapore in a matter of months, maybe July or August. But looking at South Africa's experience, we can be quietly optimistic because our resilience is high and our vaccination coverage is very high. He went on to say that he believes BA.4 and BA.5 are waves that we can ride through. Professor Dale Fisher joins me now to weigh in on this. He's a senior consultant at NUH's Division of Infectious Diseases, but he's currently connecting from Geneva. Professor, based on your assessment, how big of a concern are the BA.4 and BA.5 subvariants?
Thanks, Haryanto. I'd best describe this as an expectation realised. It's what coronaviruses do. They've been doing it throughout the pandemic. And what you see is a gradual drift genetically. So you get new mutations on a regular basis, but just from sort of tiny changes. Now, this is quite different to influenza, which can do what we call shifts, where there's like a major chunk of the virus can be deleted and replaced. That doesn't happen with coronaviruses, at least it's not supposed to. So in 2009 with H1N1, we saw one of those major shifts, genetic shifts in influenza, and we knew that the whole world basically was naive immunologically. So there was obviously a lot of scare that there was a new version of influenza. We're not likely to see that with a coronavirus, with COVID-19, where, for instance, the whole spike protein would change and then suddenly we're immunologically naive. That's unlikely to happen, and that's why with the new variants, we're seeing slight changes in susceptibility, not major changes.
So, Professor, are you saying that there is not a threat then, these subvariants?
I'd say it's more of a gradual threat, if you like. It's not going to suddenly surprise us. So for instance, the BA.4 and 5 subvariants, they are shown to be escaping some of the immunity, and we're going to see more mild disease. That's what we saw in South Africa, more waves of mild disease, if you like. The immune system, both through vaccine and through natural immunity from infection, were holding off or holding the virus at bay from causing severe disease. So in this sense, we are seeing some escape, but we need to watch it closely. But at this stage, we're not seeing sort of evidence of more severe disease, but yes, more mild disease.
Professor, in the event the subvariants do reach our shores here in Singapore, how ready are we to manage another wave, assuming it's driven by these 2 subvariants?
So, as you know, it has reached our shores. There were 3 cases reported about 3 weeks ago. So we are starting to see it. I think we can expect it to become more of a dominant variant as time goes by, because it's got this survival advantage. Are we ready for it? COVID's thrown a lot at Singapore and the world over the last 2.5 years. I think we were quite ready for the outbreak in January 2020. We had some tough times, sort of socially and economically, especially during the lockdown periods. Health-wise, at the end of 2021, when we were coming out of when we were transitioning to endemicity, there was a lot of Delta around, and hospitals were full and really tested. Then Omicron came, and we saw a lot of mild disease, and again, our systems really tested. So are we ready? I think we're as ready as we could be, as anyone could be, and I think we've shown that throughout the pandemic. And it's really hard to imagine another twist. So, you know, I'd be cautiously positive, cautiously optimistic that we're in a good position.
Professor, thank you so much for the insights. Professor Dale Fisher, Senior Infectious Diseases Consultant at NUH. In other news, fuel pump prices have climbed to new highs again to breach $4 for the first time. According to Fuel Kaki, the so-called premium grade of 98-octane fuels is going for $4.04 at Shell. Meanwhile, prices for a litre of the popular 95-octane is going up as well, ranging between $3.26 at Sinopec and $3.33 at Shell and Caltex. These increases come on the back of an imminent ban on Russian oil and increased demand as world economies return to full swing. Now, thanks to the return of tourists to Singapore, retail sales climbed 12.1% in April from a year ago, and a jump from the revised 8.8% increase in March. Sales of clothes, bags and shoes saw the biggest jump, followed closely by sales of food and alcohol, watches and jewelry. Sources tell the Straits Times that the chances of the 2025 World Athletics Championships coming to Asia are high, with Singapore and Japan tipped as front runners. Kenya and Poland are two other nations being considered. Further presentations will be made by all the bids this month before the final decision around mid-July. Two more shooting incidents in the US in the wake of 3 recent mass shootings. The first, a man shot and killed 2 women in the parking lot of a church in Iowa before fatally shooting himself. Authorities say they found all 3 dead upon arriving at the scene without giving details on identities and the relationship among the victims. The second incident was at a cemetery in Wisconsin. Multiple gunshots were fired into a crowd of mourners attending an afternoon graveside funeral, wounding 2 people. One victim was treated at a local hospital and discharged, while the other was flown to a Milwaukee hospital, apparently with more serious injuries. No suspect was taken into custody. Friday, June 3rd, marks 100 days of war in Ukraine. Russia's invasion has devastated the country, and still there is no end in sight. While millions have fled, millions more are stuck in cities reduced to rubble. Ukrainian forces are now trying to hold out against the Russians, long enough for new supplies of Western weapons to arrive. For reporters covering the war, the job is always dangerous and sometimes deadly. Joining us is Mathias Heng, a Singapore-born Australian international photojournalist who spent 2 months in Ukraine. Now he's currently in Melbourne. Mathias, you've covered wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, but was what you witnessed in Ukraine unlike anything you've witnessed before?
Yes, covering Ukraine was a totally different war from Iraq and Afghanistan. The reason why I say it was so different, I've never seen so many civilians being a target. It was a different war, you know. When I was in Iraq, you know, they were fighting against the army was fighting against the army, whereas in Ukraine, civilians were the main target, and civilian residential buildings were also targeted as well. And even journalists were being hit. One of my colleagues who was shooting for New York Times, he was killed. He was shot by a sniper. And so in total, during my time when I was there were about 7 journalists was killed.
Mathias, I'm so sorry to hear about your friend, but what you've described, the place is dangerous. It is dangerous grounds. What concerned you the most during your 2 months in Ukraine? Do you feel like you were in constant danger?
What really concerned me was the civilians, because as I was mentioning earlier, civilians was the main target for it. When the Russians got into Bucha, they went to houses. If there were men out there, they will interrogate them, question them, strip them, look for whether they've got any tattoos that associate with the Ukrainian army. And so that was quite disturbing when seeing a lot of civilians were evacuating. Many of them were traumatized. And on top of that, while they're evacuating, they're being shot as well along Bucha, crossing the border to a safer place. And that was disturbing for me, because that was the first time I see that civilians were being targeted.
Mathias, let's talk about your photos. You took thousands of photos in Ukraine. Let's bring up one of them. Tell us about where this was taken and the circumstances that led you there.
Okay, this was taken in along the border of Eping and Bucha. So these people are from Bucha and Eping. They were evacuating, and they were crossing under the bridge. And the bridge was destroyed by the Ukrainian armed forces. They had to destroy the bridge to prevent the Russian from coming in, or prevent the tanks from coming in. So that was the only way to stop the Russian coming into Kiev. So and while I was there, I heard news that there were thousands of them. That was the only way to evacuate. So I went there and I witnessed people of all ages crossing the bridge. Even people, elderly people who could hardly walk. They were on stretchers. And when I took this photo, it was a big contrast of their group of volunteers, soldiers carrying a civilian, and then a newborn baby in the pram. So that really sort of hit me. It's life changing.
Let's take a look at another photograph. Tell us about this one, the 3 boys.
Okay, this photo, unfortunately, many children are traumatized, suffering from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So till today, they are still living in underground bomb shelters. So since the invasion, they have not gone out. They're too afraid, because they hear the sound of bombing, shooting. So they're just traumatized. So when I went to this shelter, and those boys, they never smile. And there's one particular boy, he came out to me and he had a toy gun, and immediately he pointed the gun at my forehead. And the mother stopped him immediately, and that really sort of the thing that we all tend to overlook. We always look at the most drastic images of what's happening, but these people are really suffering deep inside, emotionally and mentally. And I think it's so hard to tell in photos. So that was one of my main objective, to try to get a message out. So when I went there, I did whatever I could to bring the story out of these boys, because they really need help.
Mathias, thank you for your sharing. International photojournalist Mathias Heng. Now, he'll be in Singapore next week. You can join him in person over at the projector on June 12th when he will give a talk about the war in Ukraine. Those are top stories today. Visit straitstimes.com for more news and our YouTube channel for more videos. Subscribe by hitting the red button below. I'm Haryanto Diman. Have a good weekend and see you next week.